Steve Tasker made a living as a Pro Bowl special teamer. He worked with CBS as one of their analysts and kind enough to join us on short notice. Steve, thanks for joining us. What do you think? How long is it a matter of if, not if, but when we get rid of the kickoff?
Yeah, I think so. And I don't know if it'll be gotten rid of. I guess the way it stands now, it probably will be. But I think the fun part about it is, and I know people are like, it's really difficult to say goodbye to something that's part of the vernacular. I mean, but I think people are going to find that the league is really going to do their best to replace it with something that's even better. I think that's the real challenge. The thing is, one of the things that's made the NFL great and made it the 800-pound gorilla in live sports in America is the fact that it changes all the time. They tinker with it to give fans more of what they want and less of what they don't like. So I think they'll come up with something after a field goal or a touchdown extra point to transition the ball back to the other team in some creative way that's not quite so violent as a kickoff. And if they can figure out a way to do that, I think they're perfectly ready to give it a try.
How unsafe is the kickoff?
It's by statistically speaking, more injuries happen on it than any other. And you know, you're talking like for every 100 kickoff returns, maybe you'll get 3 injuries. And maybe a third of those injuries will be concussions, or maybe a little bit more than that. Maybe half of them will be concussions because you got guys running full speed down the field and other guys that are not running quite full speed yet turning around to take those guys on, and nobody's trying to avoid the contact. You know, they're all trying to take each other on at full speed, and that's a recipe for disaster. And that's what they've been tinkering with all the way since 1974. They've been tinkering with where they kick the ball off from. It used to be the 40-yard line, and then as kickers got better and better, they moved it back to get more returns, because back then nobody really knew anything about player safety. It was a different world back then. So it's evolved much over the last 20 years at least.
But what about the violence on touchbacks? Because I tell people, you're just watching the football. You're not watching the collisions up front where this might be the only play you're in the game, or you might be on the field for 4 plays and they're kickoffs. You want to get your money's worth if you're out there playing, don't you?
That's right. I mean, you're not going to go half speed just because you don't think they'll run it out of the end zone. It's like I said. I mean, these guys are out there to compete at the highest level, and they don't care if it's for money or marbles or chalk. They're going to win every play they can, and that's there's no escaping it. And that's why I think it's the evolution is going to continue downward till it's drastically different than it has been.
How unsafe is the punt return?
Well, the punt return is kind of the same situation, although it's a little safer. Punt return team is one of those. It's the same thing. You got guys running a lot of open space. They get caught off guard because they're either looking up and trying to find the ball or looking around trying to find the returner, and they get lit up. And that's the kind of thing that second only to kickoff return is punt return as being the most an unsafe and where you get a lot of injuries. And while the difference is statistically kind of minuscule, there is a significant difference between those and regular down and distance plays. So I don't know that they'll do too much with punt return because there is a significant difference in those stats and injuries. But they're looking at everything now and trying to give or come up with creative and more fun alternatives.
Would you have had a career if there weren't kickoffs?
Probably not. But then again, Dan, they don't owe me a job. I mean, I evolved. I had great coaches who found a role for me, and I tried to make myself valuable. But it's not like they're cutting the teams. If you don't do kickoffs, you're going to cut 5 guys off the roster. There's still going to be 5 jobs there for guys who wouldn't have had a job had kickoff stayed around. So that sword cuts both ways. Now, if they start talking about making the rosters 35 instead of 45, then I'd have a problem with it. But they're not taking jobs away; they're just changing roles, and I don't have a real problem with that.
When I work with Rodney Harrison, and of course he was a violent player, he watches now and he says, "I don't know how I played that game." And I'm curious. You're down on the sidelines for all of these games, and I tell these guys, the guys I work with, they get tired of hearing this. If you heard the game on the sidelines, you don't even have to watch it; just hear it. You'd never let your kid play football. It's so violent. It's so different down there, Steve.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I tell people if you ever get a chance to watch the game on the sidelines, don't do it because you'll never watch. You'll never want to watch it anyplace else, and secondly, you see the size and the speed of these guys; it'll turn your insides to water. I mean, it is a different game. But by the same token, I'm a big proponent of youth football. I think it's a great idea. No question, there is a physical risk. But I have 4 sons. They all played, and they all got great benefit out of it. And I think that's one of the things that I say to moms who ask me. I say let your kids play when they're little, and then you make them quit when they're 15. Because once they cross the bridge of adulthood and turn and go past puberty, then they start to play angry. But up until then, there's so many positive benefits from the youth sport, and particularly football, that I think – because the risk is there, I think the benefit is 10 times more than the risk there is to injury. I'm a big proponent of the game, specifically for youth. But when they get older and heavier and faster and stronger, that's when it becomes the game you and I watch on the sidelines, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Steve, thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Dan, I appreciate it. Good talking to you.
Steve Tasker, CBS Sports, 7-time Pro Bowl special teamer. Probably wouldn't have had a career, at least at the Pro Bowl level, without the kickoff.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.